good to see you all. And as always, we're recording this session. The recordings have been the most popular thing on Renewed, so we're creating art for the future here. So thank you everyone for being here at the moment. It's good to see you all. I'm obviously David Foster, and Diane's agreed to do On the Offense today, and discuss some of the important changes she's made at Ragan since she's been there. So Diane, a huge appreciation. Thank you for doing this fun exercise and bringing some energy to the group. Very appreciated. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I thought it was like On the Offense. I was thinking, yeah, I can be offensive, so I can do this, David.
Well, we could take this in a completely different direction. So so we've agreed what we're going to talk about today is fashion, and we're going to do a critique of what everyone's wearing. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Starting with you, David.
Yeah, I know. What happened
today? Who are you wearing, right?
Yes, exactly. So as most, I think everyone on the call so far knows, Diane, you're obviously one of the stalwarts. I've had the good fortune to be on so many panels with you in the past and sit down on sessions you've done. And I mean, part of that is you got kind of the classic background for a Renewed member. Do you want to remind everyone on the call some of the things you did before you got to Ragan? Because I think that has a lot to do with what you've done at Ragan.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm CEO at Ragan Communications, which is publishing media brand that primarily serves communications professionals along with marketers, social media, and HR professionals. Prior to that, I was a couple decades at Access Intelligence, where I ran the media and communications group. So one of the brands in that group was in the PR space. And so I had become very familiar with communications over the years and had known Ragan and Mark Ragan for like 22 years or so. So I was running a division there. And there are a lot of similarities between Access Intelligence and Ragan Communications. But a core difference, like for me, was being able to focus on really one market, one discipline, primarily this communicator, audience.
Yeah, that's a nice. Looking back at some of the people on this call, Wayne, I think of you and stuff like that, at points where we've had product mixes that you could create a narrative that implied that they were connected, but they weren't really connected, and you had to fake it and fill in the gaps most of the time. So I think that leads to Diane and I had a spectacular pre-call on this about kind of like what you'd done and things like that, and the note that came to the top is one of the things you said right at the beginning that I think is maybe a great place to start this discussion, was that the brand integrity was clear with Ragan, going back to Larry Ragan founding the company, and then all the work Mark and his family had done subsequent to that. It really built a solid brand. And I think you said something like, any changes would have been almost impossible without that kind of foundation. Could you expand on that a little bit, and then we'll go into some of the specifics about what you chose to do when you moved into this established, successful company?
Yeah, it's interesting because from the outside looking in, all those years that I was frenemies with Mark Ragan, and we were competitors, and I knew a lot. I thought I knew a lot about Ragan and PR Daily and the associated brands, but it wasn't until I got in, I was able to really look under the hood and talk to the customers, that I was just blown away by the loyalty of this community and the stickiness, between the brand and the customer. And so that, was very apparent just in terms of like the customer value. The customers have been part of Ragan since like college, and some are retiring now, so it's just the long view of the profession that we were serving, starting from like the college, someone in college through to their retirement. So that whole trajectory was really strong. People have stuck with this brand. The other thing that, and Ron, you would appreciate that, or anyone who is, a writer or, in communications, one of the things that Mark had ingrained in everyone that works at Ragan is to eliminate jargon, from our copy, the way that we market things, the way that we write. And so that had really stuck with me. That is something that our community really appreciates. We're very straightforward, very community-based, very conversational. People were like their friend, and colleague in the market. So that really became clear. So we had that in place. When I came in, that was there. So there was a lot of work to be done, though, just in terms of building on that and growing that and expanding and sort of capitalizing on the brand a little bit more, and getting new technologies in place internally and the right talent in the room. But yeah, the brand was there, and it showed with our surveys, with our renewal rates, with when we launch new things, people give us a chance, they try it. Oh, that's from Ragan, I'm going to give that a go, because they want to stick with us.
So it sounds like you might not have made the move to Ragan if that wasn't there, because your work would have been so much more difficult, I suspect. But not everybody's as lucky to have, was it 35 years or 40 years of brand development behind them when they take over an opportunity. So to me, some of the things you just said, for those on the call, I mean, we're pretty lucky at BVR. I had 15 years before Lucretia and I got involved in the company. So we've got a pretty good history like that. But I think, the lack of jargon, the conversational relationship, all those things you mentioned, even if you're starting with a relatively new brand, I think trying to establish that connection, there's something to be learned from what you just said there. I think that's worth noting, and it's important. So you did have this good basis to start from, which on one hand is a little bit scary. You've got a successful working company that has great relationships with their customers, even better than you expected. On one hand, that's a little scary. You're the new, CEO. What do you do? On the other hand, it also presented some opportunities. So you just started to list. You looked around, and what popped up first on the opportunity list, or the challenge list, or the work that needed to be done, or the opportunities? Let's start down that path.
Well, this was 2019. Yep. And then, so I was in the role for less than a year, and then the pandemic hit. So that's worth noting just in looking at this, because I guess the silver lining around that, and I think everyone here who's listening understands that the role of the communicator has been so critical in organizations in terms of disseminating information, keeping employees engaged, because part of the roles that we serve are those internal comms and employee comms professionals. So fortunately, we were helping an audience that really needed our help and needed to talk to other people about, hey, what are you doing around communicating that your office is closed, or the return to office, or just anything anything impacting the business, right, with COVID and the pandemic. So, but prior to that, prior to the pandemic hitting, we had a big opportunity, and we still do, but I identified our membership groups, our Communications Leadership Council, as sort of the center point of everything that we do. Everything kind of flows from that. And that has grown incredibly over the past 3 years. It's such a strong community, and it taps into everything that we do at Ragan. So the resources that everyone's working so hard to produce, we're able to double and triple, what we can offer to those members. So if we have a conference, for example, that's a one-off for someone, if you're a member of our council, you get, that conference is included. So it's a very efficient and helpful, model for us from like an operational standpoint. That there was a crisis that hit, so we launched a crisis leadership network, which we understood that may not last forever, but at that point in time was a really great idea that we were able to execute on and help people. But we kind of expected that after a year or two, that might go away, and that was okay. It didn't have to be like a 50-year, product for us.
No, that's an important point. Is that still, that's obvious that community is still working well, right? Or are you starting to see it fade out already a little bit?
Crisis there's always a crisis. So it's sort of like woven through everything that we do. There's always a crisis component. There's always a measurement component. But we relaunched that council as our PR Daily Leadership Network, and we combined two different councils into that. So the crisis one and our social media council. And so now we have two membership groups, and we focus a lot of our time on the membership model.
Sure. So go through some of the things, like when we talked prior to this, you sort of described it as the important topics concept to get growth out of the existing brand. So obviously crisis and social media, all the things you mentioned, give me a little more on, are you planning on launching more important topic kind of membership groups, if that's not confidential information, or and what are you looking at there that you think will guarantee success?
Well, there are a few reasons that people join the council. It's either very personal, personal development, the peer-to-peer side of it, or it's learning and development, education. So it depends on the member, what they're looking for. But we focus a lot of time, on member experience, and we're iterating all the time depending on what's happening out there. So we've added things and we've eliminated things just in the past 12 months, and surprising and delighting our members, with new things as well. So it's really, it's a constant, there are things that are stable, but I think our members really like that we freshen things up all the time. We bring in different coaches as part of their service. We have proprietary research. We do a lot of concierge type offerings. So, and we are looking at other councils to launch, but we all agree as a team, there's still so much opportunity with what we have. And it's kind of hard, it's really fun launching things. We launched a wellness product in the last year and a half, and we acquired Communications Week. So those have been big integrations for us. But there's still a lot of runway on the things that we have.
I think there have been many times in my career, including perhaps now, where the idea of starting a whole bunch of new things, you get the bright, shiny object mentality. And every time I've done that, it's caused me to overlook opportunities in the core market, as it were. I want to get back to the wellness thing, because that's something else you did that succeeded. Definitely an adjacency move that you had great luck with. But Wayne's also sort of posted a comment there, just a little bit more about the structure of the membership things, because it sounds like you're really you described it as a concierge level membership. So what are, what do those look like? What are the price points? Just some details on what seems to be working for you with these new things?
Yeah, so we have the two membership groups that we have are different. The one is for the whole team, and that's the Communications Leadership Council. The PR Daily Leadership Network is an individual membership, and there are like 20 to 30 different benefits that one gets as part of the council. And as I noted before, like our members are able to take advantage of a lot of what Ragan offers all the time. Like we have a Ragan training learning portal. And so their team has unlimited access to that. There's a lot of peer-to-peer events, both virtual and in person. We have 2 retreats a year for the members.
Wow.
We have a lot of other things that are proprietary I can't really mention, but that are that's very core to who we are as a brand in terms of the one-on-one help that we provide our members, sort of that trusted consultant that we are for our members, or connector sometimes. We help people connect with really other interesting people. So the motivations are really, there are 4 or 5 different motivations that we've identified for why people would join a membership group, and anyone here is probably similar, whether it's personal or for their team or some other reasons. And so that's how we, cater to them.
Yeah. And it would be helpful just to get a sense of like what the price points for a council member and a network, because like we have evolved too from subscriptions to we still have some subscriptions that people pay a few $100s a year, but we have membership organizations from $400 a year up to $25,000 a year, and we're grappling with the different marketing and sales.
Yeah, the highest price point is $23,000 a year, and the lowest is $5,000.
Yeah. But they sound very rich what you're doing. I mean, I think there's a lesson there for all of us. I imagine the contact points with most of these people are, once a week or higher,
Yeah, it really
is that what you're seeing?
Again, it's just really ranges. Most of our members are large companies, like 10,000 employees or more. And so one week, it could be this group that's taking advantage of like a conference or resources, and then somebody else a different week. So it's like unlimited access all the time. So, yeah.
One of the other questions that I wanted to ask is as you kind of evolved at the beginning, and it's in Wayne's note too. So, but I'll continue. But right at the top, you mentioned looking at work that had to be done on technology, on marketing, on sales. Were there problems to be solved? There always are, but were there, can you talk a little bit about the ranking of things you had to adjust or you felt you had to augment in order to fuel these new projects?
We had to get our audience development, in order. So that there was that, so our CDP, we integrated a whole new system in-house. That was a major overhaul. In retrospect, it might have been good for me to wait a year to do that, but we did that pretty soon after. Maybe we wouldn't have done it with the pandemic and we would have held off, and that. So now I'm giving myself therapy on this decision, but it was a long, tortuous process. But we are now all set with our our email deployment and our customer database, our sales management system. All of those things needed an upgrade, and it was a worthwhile investment. It was a little bit of a distraction, but a necessary one for the long term.
Yep.
So that needed to get in order. Understanding the skills of the people at Ragan, and making sure, I personally make sure that I meet with every single person on the team, one-on-one, multiple times a year, having an understanding of where their skills are, where we need to upskill, where we had holes in the organization and hiring. We're still building out a digital organizational structure. We just hired a head of product for our websites, which I'm very excited about. That's a new position.
Who does that
event logistics, because we weren't doing it live events, but now we're rehiring on that front. So yeah.
Wow. That's kind of thrilling. Those are each one. You just mentioned 5 major adjustments there, some on the technology side, the system side, the audience development, and then a head of product and live events logistics. That's do you need more therapy around that, or are you still okay? The group's here to support you.
Bringing in an HR manager, we're a small company, but nothing more important than our employees. And I had I was wrong about this, but I thought you had to be like a larger company, to really support like an HR manager, HR director. I do not think that that's true. I think it's a key position in our company, HR. Our person's been integral to bringing in the right talent, to saving us time in our own outreach and looking for new hires, and helping with employee communications and all things employee relations.
Yeah. Did you bring in the HR person too, or was that person already in place? And have you tried to evolve the role with COVID and everything like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We brought her in about a year and a half into my tenure, so not right away. And I think that's evolving. We're learning a lot. Fortunately, we covered wellness, workplace wellness, and employee communications. So we learn from we eat our own dog food kind of thing. We see things, we hear things, we're like, we should try that, or we get a lot of inside scoops on wellness and employee comms that we definitely apply.
Yeah. Any questions for Rayward on that? Diane, for the record, that was an incredible list of changes you made that you just ran through very quickly. We could probably do a session on each of them, like the head of product position, how that fits into an organization is something that intrigues me, but other people on the call might have noted other things. But so if anyone wants to jump in with any questions on any of that long list Diane just kind of gave us as a gift, so or to offer therapy and support for all the changes you've gone through, that'd be fine.
The head of product that you mentioned is a great topic. Is that an editorial person, or is it a tech person, or a combination of all those things? Or a marketing person?
She's got a background in both tech and marketing and design, web design. It's we at first thought we could have one digital director, sort of overseeing the positioning, our web, our e-commerce, our customer journeys, everything digital. But we've since decided to divide that idea into 2 positions. So one is the head of product and one is the head of development. So the head of development would oversee our engineer, our programmers, all the more technical staff. And then the head of product is essentially the person who has the vision and will be able to execute on all of our digital strategies, and working really closely with marketing and with content. and content as it mostly relates to search engine optimization and, monetizing content.
Wow, that's great. Wayne, how does that fit in with what you're thinking about?
Yeah, I guess ours is a little more distributed, like our marketing team has some tech capabilities to build websites and do, email deployment and all that. And, I like the idea. I mean, we have like an editor who kind of oversees like most of our content, which they overlap a lot, but we've been thinking about, our head of content it's way beyond just editorial now, right? Like especially in our memberships, so much of the value is not from our content to them. It's helping them network with each other and listservs and things like that. So we're kind of we're rethinking some of that.
Yeah. Do you have like, are these new managers, that you've sort of brought in development-oriented entrepreneurial leaders into the company? Are they working to sort of business plans or to KPIs, or are you, since you brought in all this new firepower during COVID, are you sort of jointly working with them to develop the vision? How are you motivating and exciting them about the future? That for you, Diane. I'm back.
You're asking me that.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I wanted to know what Wayne was going to say.
Yeah, I do too. Wayne and so could everyone. So. But
yeah, so it's really exciting to bring in talent that is digital first. Like even on the content side, multimedia journalists, people are really interested in video and podcasting, or even if they don't have the experience, they have the curiosity and the interest, which is, just as important. So, so much of almost everything that we do starts with someone going to our website or somebody getting an email from us. And yet, I think we can all relate to this. It's sort of like a nice to have. Sort of a nice to have position, this idea of a head of product, but it's become essential because the marketers are so busy with their own marketing, products on this platform, and the content people are so busy, just articles and event programming. And so you just assume your web platform's good to go, but it's really not. And you always need to be looking at new like widgets and tools and fixing things and the latest Google algorithms and things like that. So people are excited about that internally, and they see that investment in new talent and technology, and I hope it makes them see this as, a company that's investing in people and technology in the future.
It certainly sounds like that when you describe it. So you've sold me on that. What did you do for the organization, the content and marketing people on the digital side? Are they reporting to this new person? Did you have that complexity, or can you just describe your new organizational structure?
Yeah, so we have an executive committee that is comprised of our CFO, our CMO, and our Chief Growth Officer. This position's reporting into me. The marketing, there's other positions reporting to me as well, but she would probably, this new role, she starts on Monday, but she'll be working really closely with the marketing team and the digital team and our head of content. We have a director of content as well. So she's probably going to be spending more time with them than with me on a weekly basis.
But they're peers, the head of content. So it's a peer-to-peer relationship. That sounds good. Anna, I love your comment. Do you want to jump in there? Just you got some pot. Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I really can relate. I am the marketing director and working hard on getting marketing working. Our website always misses out. We're like, well, this conversion chain could have been approved, but we had no one to do that. And so it always a catch up. We structure the marketing correctly, and then we come back and then we fix the website to match, because there is no one really responsible for the website. It's just the thing that lives on its own. So I think it's a really good call. It sounds like it.
Yeah. No, that's my reaction too, Anna, a little bit. I think of, Lucretia's our organization at BVR, and who is it? Helen Coetzee, I did On the Offense maybe a year ago, and she said what's happened on the digital marketing side is that there are now so many specializations that it's almost impossible to hire to fill every single one. And something always gets left behind. Presumably, if you're, Google, you've got 500 people in each of these positions. Who knows? But none of us are Google, as Diane said to me in the setup call. So you're always, I think all of us are trying to figure out the perfect organization that covers the essentials and exposes us to the least damage. So Diane, what you try to do is really, it's interesting how you solve the problem. I mean, I'm sure all of us on the call are thinking through our own organization structures as Anna just did, and think, yeah, that's why the website's always sort of a little rocky, because we don't have that position.
Right. This person every day, that's all she's thinking about, is are things working? How can we do this better? How can I support marketing? How can I support content and the development team?
Yeah. I wish you the best especially with this new person starting Monday. I mean, I think that's just going to give you a huge amount of energy, to have those extra resources. That's what I always feel when we're fortunate enough to bring somebody in. Could you, so a lot of the changes you made have involved increases in skill sets. You also mentioned that you launched into the adjacency space of wellness, and that's been a success. So but maybe for right now, I'd leave that as something, people can be in touch with you about if they have questions about that. But maybe just a topic, sounds like you made some amazing hires during this period where it's really hard to hire good people, and you've hired into positions that are very hard to find. I think a lot of people are struggling to find multi-talented, multi-disciplined, curious, energetic people. Could you talk a little bit about your journey there, Diane? Maybe
it is really hard to find. It almost seems like unicorn you're looking for, especially for that head of product, and that person came to us through an internal referral, and those are among the best because they know people inside the company really, know the DNA and they really know like the warts and all, and the fact that they're still wanting this person to come, join them as a colleague. And also, it's just, there's that gray area that's really, it's helpful when somebody is referring someone internally. So we made many hires that way. We've been using executive recruiters, like in the tech space that specialize in those kind of searches. So that's been helpful. But we've had people leave as well. I came in after Mark was running the company for 30 years. And Mark and I are very different. It's a different culture. So accepting that some people don't, they may not want this fast moving culture, that I'm helping to create, just one of the people helping to do that. But so we've had, some turnover. But for the most part, you know, the last like year and a half to 2 years have been very smooth, knock on wood. And we've been adding to the content team, investing more in content people.
Yep.
Because that's everything that we do is content, whether it's an event or even for a membership. I mean, it's like almost all content. So we need more content people and those who bring that multimedia approach.
Sure.
So you bring in those people, they learn from each other, they get energy, you know, from each other and the new hires. And we've kind of like created a new culture in the last 2.5 years or so through all these new hires and new positions and people learning from each other. We've also been working with consultants on different areas before we commit to a new job title or a new hire. Test the waters there.
That's got to be helpful to somebody who can kind of look from the outside. And do they do sort of gap analysis? Is that how they've helped you? Or because again, within your own organization, even when you're new to the position and you're trying to affect change, it can be really hard to see that. And it's really helpful to have a third party looking over your shoulder. So
like an example would be when we first when we brought in Omida as our CDP, this was a pretty big undertaking, and it was recommended to us a woman that had used this, you know, platform for many, many years and could really help us and help our data people and our marketing people understand it, because she's a user, like a, you know, power user of this platform. And so she's still a consultant with us. And she has helped us immensely, you know, and also decrease the, you know, stress level of my team, because she knows how to use this and she knows the tricks and the shortcuts, and that's been really helpful. So that's just one example of, you know, working with a consultant. Also brought in a consultant to pick apart everything about our digital strategy. And it was like a masochistic exercise. Like, tell us everything you hate about, like, what she did, and made some recommendations, and that was what culminated with our decision, you know, to go with this head of product and with director of digital development. So that was more the investment.
Yeah, before we do, there are a couple other questions before we turn it over. It's interesting because I think many people on the call here have known you for a long time and have known Mark for a long time and the Ragan family for a long time. And of course, they come out of a journalistic background. So content, you know, Ragan was one of the original content is king companies. But you managed to take it even farther. So I just sort of wanted to say, you know, listening to you talk about what you tried to do on top of an already strong platform is impressive. What's your week to week, month to month relationship with Mark these days?
Mark and I are very simpatico on you know, the content is king, and, you know, investing in our team, and most important, just as importantly, knowing our customers. I mean, Mark knows so many. I mean, he has like 30,000 LinkedIn connections, something crazy, some Guinness record. So he's very well connected, and he's very people oriented and customer oriented. And so I learned a lot from him. He's also, if anybody knows Mark, he is also an actor and a director and a producer, is into the arts, and he's, you know, a wonderful speaker. So he continues to speak at some of our events, you know, big stage type of things, and continue, you know, people are still know Mark, but Mark, you know, when he passed the baton to me, he was very gracious in not being on stage as much, I guess, sort of like weaning himself off of the day-to-day of the brand. And that was a little bit of a risk, right? Because how much is the person and the brand, how connected are they to the revenue and everything? So I think it was a good decision in the end. So we talk regularly. He has a lot of things going on outside of Ragan that he's able to do now. And so that the more he does that, that's my metric for whether I'm doing okay. If he starts calling me every day, I think I'm in trouble.
Diane, you're spectacular. So say hi to Mark on behalf of all of us when you talk to him next. Tell him, remind him that he's missed and loved and that sort of stuff. So, so there, just to wrap up, there are a couple questions, and I hope this discussion, Diane's available on Renewed. We're all in touch here. The purpose of these On the Offense things is to start these conversations. So, and particularly maybe this session more than any of the other ones we've done, I think you've listed, Diane, you've listed a dozen topics that we could all dive into. So I hope those discussions continue for everyone here. There's no way you're going to cover a deep dive on this many topics in a 45-minute sort of session, but your ability to raise what you did, how you looked at the issues, is hugely helpful. So just a couple of quick ones. Wayne asked, just virtual remote, where are you guys on that? What are you thinking?
In terms of our office, or in terms of our event strategy and all that?
Wayne? More internally, as you're, recruiting people and retaining people, or have you
work from almost anywhere?
Was Chicago based, you're in Connecticut, I know, but are you fully embracing remote for everybody, or have offices or satellites? And
our headquarters are in Chicago, and so we've maintained that office. And prior to the pandemic, about 65% of our employees were in the Chicago area. Now it's like the reverse. It's more like, it's about 40% are in Chicago and the rest are all over. So we hire from anywhere now. Sometimes it's a challenge, with West Coast, and we don't have anyone overseas, but pretty much we go where the talent is, and people work from home, and we've always been a remote kind of culture, even before this. And even before this, we were streaming our conferences, and we had a really big virtual event platform. So we were very, fortunate in those ways. We had been there and been doing that. So it's, we've done a lot of onboarding virtually, but we do, because we do a lot of events, we look at our events as a way to bring the team together, so there's the office in Chicago, but there's also all of our events that we do that we can bring as many team members together around that as possible. Because, we get on Zoom multiple times a week. We have all hands meetings once a week. People are connecting, but there still is nothing like being in person.
Yeah. Interesting to use the events. Maybe Ron, you might have asked the perfect wrap-up question, because we are dealing with Diane. You were a journalist at the beginning of your career, right? So you'll never get that far away from it. Ron, you want to close us out with your question?
Sure. Thanks, David. Yeah, Diane, I read about metrics so much these days, clicks or time spent on page, or today now I read there's too much emphasis on metrics because it takes away from the mission or something. So how are you guys approaching it?
Well, it depends on the department, right? We're always looking at analytics. We are looking at website traffic and open rates of our emails and which articles people are clicking on. through programmatic, we're constantly tweaking our we do a lot of programmatic advertising. We're constantly tweaking that. I think the biggest thing is like return on attention. You know, it's an attention economy. When people ask like who's our biggest competitor, and I don't mean it like sarcastically, I really think it's time, people's time. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like they're necessarily choosing between us and our direct competitor. It's more like, do I even want to make any time for you? So I think the more
Wow.
you know, the biggest metric is, are they coming back for more?
That's good. Thanks.
Wow, that's quotable, Diane. That's like that's like a punchline right there. That's a good one. So does you know, so we're at the end of our official time. So I think all of us offer you support and applause for what you managed, you know, to take something that was working well during a difficult period and do what you've done is inspiring. So, you know, as it always is to talk to you. So I just want to say, you know, huge thanks, Diane, for sharing the decisions you made, the risks you took, you know, that it really is nice to hear that story. And I think we all wish you great success in the next 3 years, you know, after.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for inviting me on. I just love talking about all this. I'm happy to talk one-on-one, you know, keep the conversation going. I just love what I do, and it's like never a dull moment. So
yeah. I officially in my medical position say you do not need therapy. I think you're doing really well. So
thanks,
okay,
I'll cancel my session with my therapist.
Okay, wait, listen, I just saved you a few bucks right there. You know, that, you know, the call was worth it on that one. So but no, I think we probably all need to stick with therapy. We do the best we can. Anyway, thank you so much. It's great to see all of you. Keep the discussion going. And thanks for being part of the renewed community, all of you, for being here. So we'll see you next next month. Dan Oswald is filling in, who's a Ragan alumni, coincidentally. So this is the Ragan period on the offense. So
that'll be a wonderful one.
Yeah. So okay, best everyone.
Great. Thanks,
We'll see you soon.
Bye.